Today is June the 18th, 2019. My name is Tanya Fincham, and along with me is Alex Bishop. We're with Oklahoma State University, and we are in Oklahoma City to interview Len and Lillian
Sparagowski.
a little bit Sparagowski.
Think of the spare tire and Gosky.
Sparagowski.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for having us today. Let's begin with having you tell us, Len, when and where you were born.
I was born in Toledo, Ohio. And the records that I have at that time, I don't think they had birth certificates. Whether they did or not, I can't remember, but I was baptized in St. Anthony's Church in Toledo, Ohio, where the records were kept. And we have copies to keep the records. When I was only 8 months old, my parents went they came from Poland originally. They had to go back to Poland and to dispose of some property that they owned. And once they got to Poland, they couldn't leave. And we came back to Oklahoma when I was about 19 years old, I believe.
Just before the war broke out.
Okay, so what year were you born?
1921.
1921. What had brought your parents to Ohio?
I don't know. All the relatives were there.
Okay. And what did they do for a living?
Pardon?
What did your parents do for a living?
My dad was in, he worked in a factory, Dolo Die Casting Company.
Okay.
And he died, I believe it was in 1951 or something like that.
Okay.
As years go by, I can't remember what was a dream and what was real.
So how many brothers and sisters do you have?
This is the big part.
Okay.
14 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
I'm the last one. They're all gone.
Are they? Where were you in the order?
13th.
13th? Almost the baby.
Two younger sisters.
Wow. That is a pretty good family.
When we came to America back, the neighbors, we were sent to Toledo, Ohio, and the neighbors saw that there was such a big family coming in from Poland. I guess they felt sympathy for us. All the neighbors got together and they had sacks and boxes full of groceries. And my oldest sister said, when we get to America, I'm going to fix you an American meal. We never had a decent meal. And so we waited for that time. The ship came in, we came into Toledo, and the neighbors all saw this. And my oldest sister said she'll fix the meal. We had a wood stove in the kitchen, and then my sister took all the groceries out of the boxes and the sacks, and she came to a jar of peanut butter. We never heard of peanut butter. And so she gave us this jar, and she took a I can't remember, a dish of some kind, and put little dabs of peanut butter here, and give each one of us a spoon. And she said, this was our American meal, peanut butter. While we were eating the peanut butter, at that time it wasn't homogenized like it is now. So it would stick to the roof of the mouth. And we'd, with our finger, my mother walked in, she said, what's happening here with the fingers in the mouth? And she said, she took all the peanut butter, put it back in a jar. And my mother said, this is not edible. I believe this is sad. And any time you got cut, burned, or so, I'll come to sad. I had a sore throat one time, and she rubbed peanut butter all over me. And when I went into the service, I enlisted in the Air Force, and they sent me from Toledo, Ohio to Columbus, Ohio for boot camp. And the first meal they gave me was a peanut butter sandwich. I couldn't wait to call home and tell them I had a peanut butter
Sad.
a sad sandwich. That's my sister's. That's how I was introduced to America.
Now this story has been published in several things.
Okay, so you went to school in Poland?
Yes.
Okay. And now it's your turn. When and where were you born?
I was born here in Oklahoma City, and it used to be called the Doctor's Hospital. It's out east someplace. But anyway, I guess it was kind of a little place, and they didn't have any hospitals and doctors at that time because that's been a long time ago. And anyway, there was 5 of us. I had 2 older sisters, two children, a son and a daughter that was a nun. She was also a nurse at Mercy for 27 years at the emergency room. And she'd been gone now for several years. And then I had an older brother. The first child was an older brother. And I don't know, he just didn't do much. And Mama babied her boys. They were just it, you know. And then there was another girl, just before me, that got diphtheria, and she choked to death because of not having a doctor or being able to get to a doctor. So this kind of pried on my father all these lives that little girl didn't have a doctor. Well, then I came along, and I did pretty good. I just never hardly sick. And then I had a brother, and he lived to be 23, and he drove a truck, and he had a load of curved fruit jars, and he got up to deliver those. Started out real early. He got as far as Eureka, and they had a switching station there. Well, he had to stop for the train to go by, and he thought the train would go on. Well, he went on, and the train backed up, and it killed him instantly. And so about that time, they were breaking up the farm and building houses and other things. And the church they were going to make a new church. And my father gave the land for the church. And he said that since my brother James had just gotten killed. He was only 23. He hadn't been married very long. That they named this church St. James. So that's where St. James is. And then that was all the children. There was 5.
And so what year were you born?
August the 18th, 1924.
And your parents were farmers?
Mm-hmm.
Farmers?
Yeah.
Had,
Everybody was a farmer at that time.
and they had come to Oklahoma through what route?
Well, it all goes back to my grandfather, who came from Germany, and they landed in New York, Buffalo, New York, and it was too cold there. Just too much snow. So they moved on to Minnesota, where there was German people. So a lot of them was in the north there. And then my mother's folks, they came from Germany too, but they went to Iowa. And so, life goes on, and they grew up, and my grandfather, though, he must have been a real industrious person, because after he came to to Minnesota, he went back to Belgium 3 times. Now, how many he brought each time, I don't know. But these big horses that you see back here on the wall, he brought those over here, and the farmers went crazy. I mean, they couldn't get enough of them. So he got real rich off of the deal. And when Oklahoma opened up, it was warmer down there. That was a pretty good place to go to. So he sent 2 of the older boys to Oklahoma, put them on a boxcar, and sent them to Oklahoma to find a place that they could stay. So they landed about 36th and Western. And so they made this little house, shack or whatever it was. It was only about 3 rooms to bring them and about 12 children to Oklahoma. They packed up and they came down here. It was just too cold in Minnesota. So he had all this money from these horses. Well, boy, people wanted to buy land, to build their houses. And they came in 1895. And so when he got here, he had all this money. He went and bought property. He bought Main Street, Packentown, Capitol Hill, you name it. He practically had Oklahoma City. And so he built the Medical Arts Building, which is it's about 1st and Robinson. No, not Robinson, Broadway. 1st and Broadway. And there was only 3 stories to it. Well, in this book it shows all these pictures of these buildings and everything. And as time went on, when they came here, my father was only 10 years old. And that's what this picture is about. He's on the end there. But he was only 10 years old at the time that they came here. And so I guess they all did pretty good. Anyway, what he sold the land here in Oklahoma City, he got enough money that he gave every one of his children a farm. And that's why there's Reddings in Chickasha, Calumet, Piedmont, El Reno, you name it. They're all over. And we happen to be here in Oklahoma City. And 36th and Western is where my father got. He was the last one, so he got to stay there at the home place. And he built a nice big house for us. It was a big house. And I lived across the driveway from my grandmother. By this time, my grandfather had died. And all the things he must have done, he was quite an energetic man. He did good things. And on this picture, way back behind my father, sits Mount St. Mary's. Okay, as he grew up, all of his brothers and neighbors, farmers, they went together and they gathered money and work. They all went and built Mount St. Mary's. And it was built about 1903, I think. And, uh-oh. Hello? I can't talk right now, honey. I'll call you back later on. What? Oh, I'm so sorry about that. But I'll talk to you a little bit later. Okay. Bless his heart. That was our son. And his dog had been sick for a few days and it just died. He said, I just got through burying it. Oh. And this dog was really a watchdog. That was the love of his life. But anyway, when my grandfather did so many things that it's just a wonder for that time of life, you know, because they just wasn't things. Mm-hmm. And he gave each one of his children a farm. And we got the last one. That's why we were I'm the last of this generation.
What was your maiden name again?
Redding.
Redding.
Okay. All right. When they broke up the farm, they put a Redding shopping center. It was stores, a whole row of stores along Western. We lived on the corner. And by this time, my grandparents were already gone. And when I talk about St. Mary's, I went there 12 years because there was no school around here at that time. And so every day I walked home down 28th Street, and you know, it was the end of the school property. There was a big ditch there. And I didn't think nothing about that ditch being there, so what, you know. And I found out recently that my grandfather was coming home, I guess, from downtown in a buggy, horse and buggy. And what caused him to have a wreck, I don't know, but I just presume my grandfather might have fell asleep and jerked on the reins or something. Anyway, the buggy and the horse turned over in this ditch. And my grandfather must have gotten hurt pretty bad. But anyway, he lived 3 weeks and he died. And little did I know, all of those 12 years that I walked by that hole, that my grandfather died in there. But anyway, that soon, you know, life went on and everybody got married. Well, there wasn't so many marriages in our family though, because my brother was killed and the little sister died. And let's see the other. Well, anyway, there was only the three of us left. And but it was kind of a surprise to think that I looked down in that hole for 12 years and didn't know that, you know. But anyway, when they now all of the aunts and uncles, this whole family, everybody up there in that picture, is gone. And almost, well, all of the aunts and uncles are gone. And all of my cousins, which would be the first generation, they're all gone. But me and one cousin.
Hey, you're hanging in there.
We're just a year or so apart. And
well, how did you two meet?
Okay, I was graduating from high school, and this was wartime, and they had been in California, and they were moving them overseas, and they stopped here in Oklahoma. And wouldn't you? The first night that he spent in Oklahoma, we had that bad tornado out there on 29th Street, and he was sent to guard all night so that people wouldn't steal our animals. And that was his first night in Oklahoma. And so since I was graduating, and there was no boys in our school. It was just strictly a girls' boarding school. Well, they were trying to think of things to do for, a graduation thing. So this girl's mother, she's going to have this party at her house, and there was 19 of us girls. That's how big the class was. And so she had this party, and we was going to their house. They lived on the north side of town. And when I got there, now I was old enough by this time I could drive a car. So I drove the car to the party. Well, we were all there, and we was waiting on this. The mother called and asked the USO if they would send 3 servicemen to this party because she wanted every girl to have a boy there. Well, mine was off in service already. I hadn't met him yet. And so, as far as I know, he was actually killed at Pearl Harbor. But anyway, here I am, and these cab drove up, and 3 guys got out of it. And I first saw him, and oh my gosh, the lights flickered, and the bells rang, and everything else. And I couldn't tell you no more what those other 2 guys looked like, or I can't even remember them. But I remembered him. And since he had to be back home at the base here, Rogers, by 11:30, and I had the car, so guess who came home with me? And so I brought him home, and I took him back up to the base and dropped him off, and then I went home. Okay, I didn't hear from him for a couple of days. I called him. And that's how we got started.
She chased you.
Yeah.
But, there was just something about him that just couldn't get away from me.
What'd you think about her?
I told her she could have the last word.
See, that's why we never argued.
We won't argue. I'll give you the last word. She said, thank you. And I said, you're welcome.
And so, of course, he wasn't here very long because he was just overnight. Well, I think he stayed a month, though. And then they were shipped out overseas. Well, I didn't see him for a whole year after that, or almost a year. And he got hurt. But things were so secretive at that time, I didn't know it. I thought, because he was with the chaplain here, he followed the chaplains around. So, since it was in the hospital, I thought he was just with the chaplain visiting these hurt people. I didn't know he was one of them. And anyway, while he was there, you tell him about the royalty that came to visit you and the flies bugged on the wall. When you were in the hospital and the royalty there in England came to visit you at the hospital.
Oh, okay. We had a quintet hut. You know what I'm talking about. The dome hut. And I was a patient there. We had 6 patients on one side of the room and 6 patients on the other side. And one of the she said,
it's okay. The royalty came to your bed.
Okay. We were told not to mess up the bed. We could just change your linens. Your linens are perfectly clean. We don't want any problem with the linens. She said, members of the hierarchy are coming to visit us. Well, I didn't know who the hierarchy is. And it happened to be Lady and Sir of England. Lady of England came to my bed and she said, is there anything I could do to do for you? Write the letters home or get you some cookies or whatever. What can we do? And I was laying there and I was restrained. I couldn't walk. And I said, see that cobweb from the ceiling was hanging down each day. It's getting a little longer. You thought I committed murder. I asked a lady of England to do the favor of pulling a spider web off. They were so mad at me. I didn't understand what made such a big deal over it. But they thought that it was poor housekeeping.
So anyway, he got past that, and I still didn't know he was hurt. I just thought he was there in the hospital. And and I wrote to him every night that he was gone. I wrote to him every day that he was gone. He got about one letter every 2 weeks, but I wrote every night. And so I wrote to him one night, and I said, you know, I had a dream that you were going to come home. And I got a letter back, and it said, your dream's coming true. And so he got busy and because he could use a typewriter. And he wrote this letter to me. And when I opened the envelope up and I started to pull this letter out, it got longer and it got longer and longer, and it hit the floor. And I thought, holy smokes.
She still has the letter.
Yeah, I still have that letter. Anyway, he wrote that. There must have been, about 6 or 8 pages that he had pasted together and wrote that much on a typewriter to me. And that was why he told me he was coming home. So he did come home pretty soon after that. And then I found out he'd been hurt. And he was in this B-17 and they got shot down. And he went clear through. So that's why he has some little physical problems. You know, his arm doesn't work as good, and but didn't stop us from doing anything. Because man, we spent our life full of something all the time. We always had a project going. And a friend, we went to visit her, and she said, "I'm going camping. Come go with me." Well, of course, we'd never had much about that. I went one time with my folks when they got it first car. They went someplace, and it got a little dark before they got home, and they was afraid they couldn't make it home. I mean, the car had lights, but we didn't know. We stopped at Sulphur at the park, and we spent the night there. Now, that was my first trip. Well, when this lady asked us to go, we didn't know really what was up. And she had a bed sheet. She put it on the rocks. That's where we slept the first night. I said, that's enough of that. And so before we got through, we camped for 85 years, and before we got through, we had an automatic hot water shower out in the woods. We had everything you could want for, do the things that we wanted to. So we thought this was a lot of fun. And we volunteered to be the campground host at Cold Springs for 2 different years. And we lived in a tent for 5 months each year. Wow. Okay, we had an air conditioner, we had telephone, we had electric, we had water. We had everything we needed, and the park furnished that.
Weren't roughing it too much, huh?
Well, by the time that we quit camping, I had started to make those tents. And the first tent I made, I didn't know what I was doing. And I made it so big that we couldn't even handle it. And we took it one time, and I said, nope, can't handle that. So we saved it. And I said, somebody will come along someday that can use that. Well, they did. Some hunters came along. And somebody, one of the family members, he said, do you have a tent they could borrow? And I said, yeah. And I said, you can have it. I said, if you can handle this, okay. So they did. They took it. They went out in the woods someplace and they was hunting. And they assigned each man, there were 7 men, different things that they were to do during the night if it got bad, you know. Well, one of them was to zip the windows up. Well, he didn't know what zipping the windows up. And so they got pretty cold that night. So when he come back home, he was telling me about this. And I said, well, what did you do for a shower? He looked at me as if to say, what, a shower? I said, sure, you have to take a bath while he's out there deer hunting. And so I told him, I said, you get a garbage can, and you get your things, you put a little stove in it, and then you put your sink in it, and your blankets and things that you need to take this shower. And I said, you get some shower curtains, and you glue them together, and some PVC pipe. I said, make you a square, and put this around it. Well, I don't think they still knew what I was talking about. So I told them, I said, you get out there, you put your tent up, you put your little square up, you put your shower curtain around it, and I said, you take that garbage can and you fill it with water, and you put your stove underneath it, and you turn it on. Now, when that water gets warm that you want for your bath, you turn the fire off. And I said, then there's a little pump that goes up and it's got a spray on it in the top. And I use light switches to turn all this stuff on and off. And I said, then you take this other end, you put that hose in the tank, and you take this and put it in your cigarette lighter in the car. And that gives you your power, okay? They got in their shower. All they had to do was push a button. The water came down, got them all wet. They turned it off. They got soaked up. Then they turned the water back on, and they had a hot bath. And that was the way we ended. We had everything before we left. We took a freezer. We took a freezer with us, a little one, and we had just about anything we needed. So that's been really our life, and I think that is the one thing that's really stuck with us.
Camping.
And because we had that to look for, and we met so many people that lived in those towns, and I was surprised how many people that knew my father. He was well known, and everybody knew him in Capitol Hill. And we went to Grand Lake, and I met 3 different people there that knew my father. I thought, golly. But he was well liked by everybody, and he helped everybody. He helped his neighbors, his friends. He was always there for them. And in this...
What did he think of Len?
Well, they didn't complain about him. No, nobody complained about Len.
Did he ask permission to marry you?
No. We didn't tell anybody we was getting married. And when
he had a wedding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but when he come home, well, the war wasn't over, but at least he was back home already. So things was like hurry up. You didn't do all that messing around. So anyway, we decided we was going to get married. We went down, we got our license and everything, and went to the church, the Sacred Heart Church. They announced it in the sermon, and my father's there. So he come home kind of upset. But they never said anything. They didn't want us to get married, though.
Did he ask Pop the question?
No. No, we had, before he left, because we didn't know each other very long, and he said, when I get back, we'll get married. That was it. And so we did. Anyway, we got married. And it rained that day. It stormed. And the big red warehouse, it was on Main Street, got hit by lightning and burned to the ground. That was our wedding day.
And that was in
August the 18th.
1944.
No, not August.
1944.
April. It's the day of our buying here.
Oh, April 19th.
Mm-hmm. It's April the 19th that we got married.
And after you got married, where did you live?
Well, they had broken up the farm at that time, and there was all these new houses they were putting on the Rancho Village was started then. And they had built war houses, what they called war houses. And they were for soldiers when they came back. And my father had one, because see, he was kind of all of this. He didn't build the houses, but anyway, he was part of that. They didn't tell me. And he comes back and he said, I paid $500 to pay for the land, and you all pay for the house. We paid $25 a month for that house, and we paid it off.
And that included the tax and insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Everything. And it was what they called a 5-room efficiency. It had 2 bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen. We didn't have a bathtub. We didn't have a garage. They were just the bare necessities.
Mm-hmm.
And before we got through, they built onto the house. They built a garage. They built a carport. They fixed everything. And we sold the house for, I think, $22,000. We lived there 33 years. And we moved to Norman, and we lived there for 7, but he wasn't home. So we had a real neat house. So it was tri-level. It was on a lake, and we had an island, and we had a lot of things down there, but it wasn't home.
So when did you come to this house?
About 1973, something like that. We've been here 33 years. And we haven't changed very much in it. We've kept it up, though.
And what did you do for a living?
Pardon?
What did you do for a
He was a
living?
purchasing agent at a hospital.
Purchasing agent.
Okay.
He worked at Mercy for a while, and then he went
I
to
worked for a medical purchasing agent.
Okay.
Worked for St. Anne. For
Mercy.
Mercy for 15 years. 12 years for Norman Municipal Hospital.
When he went to Norman to work then, they had been remodeling and building.
Mercy didn't have a retirement plan. You were hoping to get one.
Anyway,
Praying for one.
he worked there for a few years, and after they did all that building, and everything, Carrier air conditioning, because of purchasing so many things for the hospital, gave these trips to the stores that furnished this equipment. And we were fortunate enough that we got to go on 5 trips out of the United States. And I never dreamed of doing anything like that, but we went to Trinidad first. It was an island. And we got there about 5 o'clock in the evening. All these people were walking down the road, and they were covered with grass and weeds, and I thought, all right. And come to find out, these people were going home, and land was so scarce, they planted alongside the roads, gardens, anything. And they took all this home to the old sacred cow. The cow was sacred down there, boy, you didn't bother it. And anyway, that was quite an experience. And instead of going like down to street level to go to a hotel, we went around this mountain. and the lobby was on top of this mountain. Well, when you went to your room, you went down. You didn't go up. We were so confused. We didn't know which one to push. And so we were gone a week on most of these, and we only had to pay a little bit. We paid $300, and they took care of everything. All we did was take our suitcases to the airport. They were in our rooms when we got there. They furnished every meal. Every place we went, we were entertained.
Pretty good deal.
And then we went to Curacao, which is close to Venezuela, and there was nothing there. They were dry country, and it was pitiful there. The cows were skin and bones. So there wasn't much there to see. So then when we come back, we went to France. We went through England. We didn't stop there, though. And we went to Italy. We went to Rome. We got a trip through Rome that I bet nobody ever had.
Athens, Greece.
Well, that was the last one we went on. But when we went through Rome, we saw everything there in Vatican City. I mean, how big that church is. Do you know there's 37 little altars in that church? Because all these priests and religious people were meeting there, and they're supposed to say Mass every day. So there was Mass going on all the time. And gold, they talk about being poor. There was gold every place. These doors on these churches were, I don't know where they got all the gold to make them. And there was a museum, the Roman Museum. We got to go through that. That is something everybody ought to see. It was full. The hallways were about as big as this room, and the pictures were as big as one wall. They weren't painted. They were needlework. It was all sewed. You would not have known it wasn't like that on the wall.
I'm pretty impressed by that on the wall.
It was something to see. I'm not kidding.
That was my first needle point.
You made it.
Yeah, he made that. But when we were going,
thousands and thousands of stitches in that.
How many?
thousands.
Several thousand.
About.
Anyway, when we were going through this, you know, it's pretty big. In Rome, there's 110 miles of underground catacombs. And they're all dark. They don't have electricity in them. Only this part that we went in had this little light hanging down. And but as we were going past them, they told us, now stop and look. Jesus is standing in that doorway looking at you. And he was. And he said, now as you walk, watch him move. He moved, and when you got to the other end, he was turned completely around looking at you. And it's the way the threads are put in that picture.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of a kind, and it was really something to see. And they said he was standing there sad because we were leaving.
A long way from Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. And it was cold down there. We had to wear a jacket. And you have to go in a convent to get down in there, and a nun takes you through. Okay, there was 200 of us on this trip together. And she says, I'm going to turn out the lights and show you what it's like to be blind. Okay, she turned off this light. And Len, he says, "Ugh. You never heard such screaming and yelling out of the wind." I mean, they grabbed anything they could get a hold of. It was a good thing she flipped it back on right quick.
A little mischievous.
Anyway, that was our trip through the Vatican, and it was, I'll tell you, I would recommend anybody go there and forget about the religion part of it. The Pope wasn't there when we were there. He was off visiting someplace, so we didn't get to see him. But anyway, there was so much to see there in Rome, and they loaded up the bus and they took us every day someplace. So I like that one the best of them all. Then we went to Greece, and we had to fly to France. We went to Nice, France, and we got on a ship, and it took us 5 days to get across the Mediterranean. And the Mediterranean is the warmest, calmest waters there are. The boat didn't shake, didn't rock around. Everything was fastened down though. But anyway, we stopped at all these little islands as we went. There was something different on every one of them. And this one, they had a lot of ships, going in there, and they were loading up jelly, currant jelly. Now, we used to have currants when I was on the farm. And anyway, if you look in the stores once in a while, you see them. But this was red currant jelly. I mean, they had, well, like their docks were real big. They had all these big storage places built, big, about like Amazon out here. And they were loading these ships up with that jelly. I thought, where did they get that much juice to make all them? Because, I mean, this was a big warehouse. And they were loading it on this ship to ship them out. And that kind of amazed me because I knew what currants were and how in the world did they pick that many little ones. So then we go on through the Mediterranean, another island. And when we got close to Greece, we went through the Corinth Canal, and we went at midnight. And I said, we can sleep when we get home. We got up and we went up on the deck, and it took us an hour to go through it. It's real narrow. There's rocks, and they have fence, like chicken wire, if you know what that is, over it so that the rocks wouldn't fall down on the ship. And we stayed out there and watched them. And there was a tugboat in front of our ship, a pretty good sized ship too, and one in back, and they were pulling up this way to keep it straight so it wouldn't bump the sidewalls, because they were rock. It's what they had dug out, see. Well, we get to Rome, or to Greece, and there was quite a bit there to see. They told us, though, not to go to town alone, that the people didn't like the Americans. The Americans weren't liked very well any place we went. And so anyway, we kind of stayed together because they always had plenty of person. And they went to, what was that, Corinth? Well, there was a canal, but there was a big rock. I mean, this rock was as big as this room, sitting out there. And they said it was where one of the apostles got up and spoke on. And so all the people, it was really strange to see their looks too. They got up on top of this rock and they were just, looking around, You almost think of what they were thinking about, because they were in another world, believe me. And a lot of people liked that, They really enjoyed that. Then, when we got ready to come home, we spent 10 days there. That was the most we'd spent. When we got ready to come home, the ship, they had some trouble about the plane. Didn't get there. They brought a group and took a group home. Well, they didn't get there at 8 o'clock like they're supposed to. So they didn't know what to do with us. So they put us on a bus and just drove around town, every place. And it happened to be in November, and it was what they called their Memorial Day. And all of these big mountains were decorated with flowers. It was beautiful. And so they just kept it driving until the ship, our plane, got there. And of course they had to get rid of the other people, let them off. And when we got inside the lobby of the airport, you know. Well, there boy, all kinds of different people mingling around. A lot of guards. Every place had a balcony and they had guards with guns, you know. And anyway, everybody was black but us. And they told us this is the door that we're going to go out of, you know. There was only 3 doors. This was the door we were going to go out. So we all got in line. And when they opened the door, here comes some, and he had a suitcase in his hand. And boy, you talk about they were at him. He goes right behind us. Broke through the line, he's right behind us, and he had a suitcase. Well, there was benches all around where you could sit in this airport. And whatever he had in that suitcase, when he went behind us, he gave it a shove. And it run clear up against the wall. Boy, you talk about those guards were on that. They grabbed it. Then we couldn't go out. You know, we had to stay in there. Well, by the time they got through searching all of that, it was nighttime. It took us 18 hours to get home.
Well, how old were you two when you went on this trip?
Well, we was about 50 or 60 years old. Our children were already grown. But
And how many children do you have?
we had 2 boys, we had 2 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. And our great-granddaughter just graduated from Waco in Baylor.
Okay.
Just this year.
We were going by the almanac. Almanac said every 3rd child born in the world today was a Chinaman, and we didn't want any Chinaman.
Oh, I understand you have a hobby, being a magic. Tell us a little bit about that.
I've been doing magic for over 60 years
How did you learn?
through reading books and associating with magicians. And I had to give it up with my hands shaking.
He's taught magic. A lot of people know him. And some of these children. Oh, there was a young boy. His dad was hell-bent on him being a magician. And what was his name?
I can't hear you.
J.P. Wilson. Anyway, he got to doing this.
The Copperfield and I started upright. When he come to the city, he'd contact me, I've got a pass, and I don't have to buy any tickets for his performances. He gave me a pass and I could take up to 6 people with me.
How did he know about you?
Oh, the magicians, they get around. They know.
I've
They know
made
who you are.
conventions, going to the conventions and associating with the pros.
But he's had classes, he's had schools, he's taught kids. And this J.P. Wilson, they're from Norman. He was a car salesman. He wanted that kid to learn magic. He called me up one day after they had saw Len and wanted him. He brought him into the house and he taught him. Now, he's had a show that's really, he's got girls in it, and he does it at halftime in basketball games, things like that.
That's cool.
So he's kind of well known. So,
Did you have a specialty?
I'm going to show you.
well, he can do most
You're going to
anything.
show me? Let's back it up so we can see then. See what you're doing. Okay.
I'm going to show you 3 cards
Okay.
and see if you could remember what 3 cards I showed you. The first card is the Joker. The second card is the Joker. And the third card is the Ace of Spades. Now, all you have to do is remember these 3 cards. Okay? These 3 cards. If the ace of spades is not on the bottom, it has to be on top. But if it's not on top, it has to be in the center. And if it's not in the center, let's see. You may think that I'm not using the ace of spades, but I really am. You see, the ace of spades is here. If the ace of spades is on the bottom, it cannot be on top. If it's on top, it cannot be in the center. And if it's in the center, you may think I'm using more than 3 cards, but I'm not. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3. I'll make it real easy for you. I'll turn this one over. I'll turn this one over. By now you forgot what this one is. Go ahead.
Was it ace or something? Wasn't it? What was it, Alex?
Joker, ace of spades, and this, you'd think it would be the Joker, but it's not. It's the 10 spot.
Now, how did he do that?
I don't know.
Are you going to tell us the trick of the trade?
Trick of the trade. We do not expose any of the secrets obviously out of business.
That is true.
Did you ever perform live or on TV?
Oh, sure.
Or
Sure. He's been on a lot.
yeah.
He and the governors get along pretty good.
Who were some other famous people you performed for?
Oh, golly.
Oh. Do you think you could tell them about the flag?
The flag.
No, not that one. The one that you told how the flag was.
I have written.
He was asked to do
A
this.
tribute to the American flag, and I memorized it. Now it's getting more and more difficult for
Yeah.
me.
But
But
tell the governor they was having the
one of the first things we memorized as children was the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. In recent years, anyway, it was torn apart,
bring those
burned,
things from the
trampled on, and spat on. Today, I mean, that's the way they treat the flag in this year. It's the reason why I wrote the tribute to the flag. And it's now on TV, on YouTube, and it's all over the world. These are some of my latest ones.
So you went from doing magic to doing cross stitch?
Well, he did
I'd like
painting.
to go back to magic, but I'm going to
He shakes too. But
And
he,
the painting?
he started the painting. He painted 60 fire pots, and he painted everything you could think of.
And I started on the fence.
Then after he got all that done, he got the wall out there done. He has to have something to do. And I said, well, do you think you could sew? He said, well, if you show me. So I showed him. Look what happened.
Well, you must be a pretty good teacher then.
I know a lot about sewing. Anyway, this is what he started with. And see, it has the Pledge of Allegiance here. We frame these, and now school will be starting pretty soon again. And that's why he's kind of getting ready for some of this. We frame these, and we're going to give them to kindergarten teachers, because when the little ones start to school, this is the first thing they teach them, is this. So we're making these to give to the schools for that. And so first of all, he started with this. Now this is two
There's 12
squares.
of those.
There's two squares in these that are part of a quilt.
Oh, okay.
And we've got 12 of these made. And you cut them apart. We're going to put a strip in here. And then we're going to sew all this together.
I
And
get up at 6 o'clock in the
make it
morning,
quick.
and I stayed on till 6 o'clock in the evening.
You do that daily?
Took him 3 months to make these. He's got 12 of them.
It took
Wow.
me 3 months to do
And so
that.
then he got that done, and he decided that he needed some pillowcases to go with it. So these are pillowcases. He made 2 different sets of pillowcases to go with this. Here's the other one. That goes with it. And then we bought all the stores out, the stuff they had. We bought thread until it was kind of funny. We'd go there, nobody had red thread.
You know, I found it kind
And these are tea towels.
I found it kind of disturbing when you go to any of the schools. We don't have any flag in the classrooms anymore.
Anymore.
That's just wonder why we don't have flags in our schoolrooms, and that's why I'm doing this.
Fix it
And
one flag at a
The
time.
Every
eagle was the
school will
first
have a
thing
flag.
that he made. But we haven't been able to find it. We can't find this stuff in the store now because it's all sold out.
She keeps you busy with a needle in your hand.
Yeah.
Oh, but see, he shook so bad he couldn't thread a needle. So here I am threading all these needles. And
So it's a team effort.
let's see, can you reach our where we put our needles over there behind the box? Just look over there.
Yes, I see you with your sponge.
Anyway, it's a sponge.
So you thread them all and
And yeah, we stick them in that,
Thread 'em
at night,
all.
I'd have this table all full. He gets up 5 o'clock in the morning at it. By the time I get up, they're all used up.
Well, I want to know, since you were parents, who was the disciplinarian? You both seem kind of very calm and
Well, you know what?
very.
We were pretty lucky. We got real good kids. There just wasn't much of a problem.
Southeast High School has given me a kind of
Oh, they had
on
this
Veterans
program,
Day,
for veterans.
November 11th.
Okay.
I'm invited to go to a program for the veterans in this area, and I'm one of the first.
Okay, let me tell it. Anyway, they started out with this program with the veterans.
Only World War II veteran in this area. Out of 16 million veterans after World War II, there's less than 1 million.
They have this every year, and anybody can come. And the auditorium is real big; it holds about 1,000 people. And he'd been going to that a couple times, and the last couple of times he's the only one there. And now they think he's the only one in this area that's living. And so when our son took him, he took him in a wheelchair, and when they opened the door, we thought it was kind of funny. They called a few days ahead of time. And I thought, well, why would they be calling us? And so anyway, when our son rolled him in this wheelchair, everybody stood up and they shouted and they clapped and they clapped and they clapped and they clapped. And so anyway, they went on with their program then, and all these people will line up and shake his hand. It takes an hour. And so anyway, they did their program, and at the end, someone got up and said, if you have a light or a flashlight, a camera light, or anything with you, to turn it on. And they turned out all of the lights in this auditorium. It was dark and just these people with the light. And they started singing, God Bless America. They all stood up and they sang, God Bless America. And when the last line came, it was God bless Mr. Sparagowski. That was the last time I went. Okay, now in November, and he's really working at it, but he made up this story about the flag, and he tells it like the flag is talking, how they stepped on it, they burned them and stuff like that. And anyway, it takes about 5 minutes for him to say it. Now, one of the governors asked him to do this when they were having their immigrants, you know. And he said, well, I don't know what to say. And he says, you'll think of something. So he got on the internet, and he kind of looked at things there. And he came back then with this story, and he tells it like it's flag talking. And now he's really working so that he can remember this and say it next time.
VA has really been good to me.
Has it?
They've done a lot of good.
You want to try to say it now?
Do what?
Do you think you could say it now?
Sure.
Like, give it a whirl?
Yeah, you may not get through it.
Probably have to
Okay.
stop.
Think a little bit about it.
One of the first things we memorized as children was the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. In recent years, we have seen the desecration of the flag by our own people. It's been torn apart, it's been burnt, it's been trampled on and spat on. Patriotism is not being taught in our schools today, like it was when our teachers were in charge of the classroom. Have you ever wondered what the flag would say if it would talk? Well, today I want to bring to you a message from the very heart of Old Glory. This is what the flag would say. I am the flag of the United States of America. I was conceived in the grace of liberty and hopes of freedom. I was designed by Betsy Ross. Her sewing basket was my cradle. Although I never was an orphan, I was adopted by Congress in 1776 and proclaimed to be the national emblem of a newly born nation on this continent, finding passion for survival and destined to bring to you and to all mankind a new concept of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I was with Ethan Athen, with the with the Grey Mountain Boys in the Battle of Fort Benjamin. I was flown above the deck of Old Ironside and on the mast of the Yankee Clipper. I blazed the trail of Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett. I led the settlers coming west across that valley and covered the wagon. Once I fell to the ground in the Custer's last stand. There was no hand left to pick me up. I was carried through the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli by the United States of America. Okay, that's about as best I could.
Okay, you're all right. You're getting out of breath.
It's about 5 minutes long.
It's great.
Well, it's on the TV. You just get the right thing.
It's single space typewritten letter. A whole page, I memorized it. I even memorized a deck of cards. Just to pass time.
Just to pass
I
time.
know I don't have much time, but I'm going to make the best of it.
Well, what did you perform when you did before President Carter? Did you go to the White House?
No, they told the wrong story.
They told the wrong story. Okay.
They got a few names mixed up in all
right.
this, and that's why I was so put out with
This
Channel 9.
this governor, that just took office, he even took time out to give us a congratulation.
I think he's a graduate of Oklahoma State, isn't he?
Yes.
I think so.
Well, we got greetings from several of the senators. Oh, this friend of ours, she even wrote to Trump, and she got an answer back too. We haven't got it yet. She hadn't been to see it, but I took it down to show. One of them sent my mother on her 100th birthday.
This friend of mine was responsible for getting our 75th anniversary to Preston Trump, and he sent us a congratulations letter.
Well, did you always remember anniversaries?
Did I?
Would you remember them?
You mean for us?
For you?
Oh yeah, well, we celebrate every year.
We on our 50th, we really had a big one because his two sisters also were married in the same year we were, because he was the year after the war. And so when we celebrated our 50th, they live in Ohio, but they wanted to come down here. And I thought, okay, I'll fix you. And so I had a year to plan this. So I told them when it was time, what clothes to bring, what time to get here, what to do, everything. I didn't tell them nothing. And so when they got here, 5 o'clock that evening, I said, let's go home. And I said, if you want to freshen up or change your clothes, okay. But I had it made up at the grocery store. They had a photo place in there. I had it made up with them that all my family that could would meet there and they would take pictures. And so they did. And they even put us on Channel 4. And but I thought it was so neat that we could take all those pictures of us, you know. And so they stayed a week with us. And I said, now we got to go home and go to bed because we got to get up early in the morning and we got to be across town at 7 o'clock. Have our breakfast and everything. Well, they're going. They still didn't see anything. I said, that's okay. You just wait. So the bus was waiting for us at a motel. And we were to park our cars there at this motel. And it was a tour, so that we had a guide that went with us. And we're going along, you know, going up to Tulsa. And his sister says, I still don't know where we're at. She says, we're out in the woods someplace. And I said, well, we'll get there after a while. So we got to Branson. They had everything set for us there. I mean, they had our rooms fixed, everything. This bus, and he had just had a stroke. So he wasn't too good. He couldn't walk very good yet. And so the bus, when he found out, he drove to the door, let us out, and he go park the bus. And so we stayed there for 2 or 3 days and went to all the shows that they had. And this one show, oh, I forgot his name, he's a Polish guy. Anyway, he gets up and it's all about weddings, you know. And so he said, now, everybody that has had an anniversary, come up on the stage and dance. Well, there's no way I could get him up on that stage because there was about 6 steps and he was just getting over the stroke. So I thought, okay. They started playing the anniversary dance. And everybody was dancing, and I looked at Len and I said, do you think you could stand up? He said, I can try. And these aisles are real wide. They're as wide as this room there. And I said, okay, come on. And I got him to stand up. And I knew we couldn't walk, so we just kind of stood there and wiggled a little bit. They saw us. And they put this big spotlight on. And here we are just wiggling around. That's about all we could do. But anyway, and they announced it. They, you know, our names and everything. And the poor guy, he was from from Japan. The guy with the fiddle, you know. Anyway, he didn't have such a hot name either. And ours was Sparagowski.
Jurowski.
Jurowski
It's not.
was the other, and he pronounced them all. And so, anyway, then the fellow that's having this program, his wife came to the bus after we were in the bus, and they're talking Polish to each other.
Are you still able to talk, speak Polish? Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
At one time, I was pretty fluent in 7 languages, and I forgot most of them. Now and then you get to say something.
When the next morning, then
It's Polish, Russian, Hungarian, Bulgarian, Romanian, Czech, and American. And I could say the Czech and the Hungarian, I can still remember. I don't quite, I forget a lot of the Russian. I don't use Russian at all. So, but it's,
anyway, the
I'm
next
the only
morning,
one to associate with because they don't speak
the next
language, and I'm losing it.
If you don't practice, you lose it. Yeah.
well, the next morning, we went to a program before we came home, and anyway, they had things kind of planned for us. They didn't say much about it, but anyway, they introduced us and told all about us, what we did and everything, and then it was time to come home. Well, the plane, something happened, and it didn't get there. And so we had to wait almost all day for them to mess around and get a plane back to bring us home. But we've had quite a lot, really. 40 years ago, when we lived in our first house, I don't know, we'd been married maybe 10 years. He decides he's going to be Santa Claus. And so he gets an old sleigh, a real one, an old sleigh, and we painted it up. We painted it red, and we put white trim all over it. And I made our suits. I made a Santa Claus suit, and I made a coat for me. And we've set that in our front yard. For 10 years, we did it. And every night for 2 weeks before Christmas, he and I got out there, whether it was cold or what. And we made holes in the bottom of that, and we put our camping stove underneath it. And he come up and and we put a blanket over us, so that kept us warm. But all these little kids could come and sit on his lap and tell him what they wanted. So we had candy canes, and that's how we kept track of the number that was there. And anyway, with the count of those candy canes, we gave away 22,000 sticks just to children, no parents. That's how many was there that night. And we did that for 10 days, 10 years for 4 hours every night.
Oh, they were sad when you stopped.
Well, the reason why we stopped is we moved, and we moved to a place where it was a private area, and it was just one way in, so that broke it up. But
So of the two of you, you were the one that figured out how to solve problems with the.
oh yeah,
like
and
with
we
the
had deer, a concrete deer, and I made little coats for them. I put all their names on them, and they were stretched across our front yard. And anyway, all these little kids were coming, and they were speaking different languages. Okay, he comes up with his languages to speak back to him. And these little kids were so shocked, and he knew one of the salesmen that used to come. He was there, and they went to the mall, and Santa Claus was trying to get him up there, and they said, "We already talked to the real one." But to think that 22,000 children came
Well, did you do this before or after you had children?
after.
Yeah. What did they think?
Oh, they know we do all this stuff. They don't think nothing of it. But, I mean, I made all these coats for these deer, and we made our suits, for me and him both. And our yard would be so full sometimes, it was funny. It would feel hot. There'd be so many people there that it would feel hot in there. And then, of course, when we went in the house, it was kind of cold then. But you'd be surprised the things that the kids would tell us. And they brought a busload from someplace that spoke sign language. He gets a book out and he learned sign language so he could talk to these kids. And they were amazed by what he could do. They thought, boy, he was the real thing. So, but that's what our life has been.
Well, did you ever think you'd be married 75 years?
No.
Well,
It's still hard to believe,
what's the secret to being married so long?
all this stuff we do.
I would say, first of all, we have to share together. Whatever we do together.
We're always together. We have been apart very few
Whenever
nights.
there's major problems, we take it with our children, explain to them what's going on, and they help us to solve a problem, if there is one. I think trust in one another is the secret. And of course, at that time, we took him for better or for worse, for richer, for poor, for sickness and in health, until death do us part. And we made that promise, so we're going to carry it out.
We do a lot for other people. When we first moved here, and that's been 30 years ago, I fixed a dinner, and we served it out there on the driveway. And we're in 2 blocks here. There's 40 houses here. And I invited all of the neighbors to come and have dinner with us. About 25 of them showed up. It was a weekend, so it was kind of not so good. But anyway, we put up our little tent. It's different than one we had out there. We put that up, and I put all the food out there, and they got their plates, and we just sat around the yard. And I told them, I said, I'm doing this to get acquainted. I want you to know who we are, and I want to know who you are, so that we can help each other. And a lot of them, they haven't forgotten it. And I did that twice.
A lot of them still here? Or a lot
Not
of them
anymore.
still?
I'm the only one that did it. But I did it. I cooked the dinner twice for everybody. And then we ate outside. They were pretty good when we were through. They gathered up everything, and I put a trash can there, and they put all the chairs and everything. I told them, I'll furnish the tables, but you bring a chair. So,
Well, what did you cook?
what did I cook? Oh, golly, I can cook anything. But I worked at school for 20 years. I worked at Jefferson School. Well, being on a farm, I started from the word go, because we always had a garden, and I can remember when I was really small, my mother didn't like the sun. And so when we went to the garden, I held the umbrella over her while she picked the green beans. And I'll always remember that. But anyway, I've always kind of been around the garden and around food and cooking and things. When you're on a farm, you do everything. And my grandfather, he really grew wheat there on 36th and Western. That was the thing. He grew wheat. And he said that his wheat was of such good quality that he could send it to Chicago. So he rented a whole train and filled it with wheat and sent it to Chicago because he'd get more money out of it. So see, he was somebody that was on the ball. My father was their way. Boy, he could do
It
things.
sounds like you're that way too.
Well, I want to know what's your most favorite dish to eat that she makes.
What?
What's your most?
What's my favorite dish I make?
Yes.
A lemon cake is the one cake that I really make.
That's one of my favorites. There's so many of them. She changes.
You ever making some Polish food?
I've tried it.
Polish food, when I was a teenager or a kid, we didn't have much food. I mean, we ate only one meal a day because of shortage of food. And I remember crying because we were hungry. Mother would say, well, go take a nap. By the time you wake up, it'll be time to eat. And we go to sleep and wait for next morning. And, I mean, it was pretty hard. And, I mean, but Polish food, when we came to America, they were like pierogi, they call it. Was like the rolled in cabbage
Sausage.
and beef. And that was a good we got a lot. Mother would do a lot of baking. So, but to eat Polish food now, I couldn't eat it.
Well, I want to know. You've been married for 75 years. What does it mean to be in love? What does love? What does love mean?
You don't want anything to happen to him. He's got to be well and okay. Something strange happened just within the last few days around here. And it's something that I have never, ever heard of or seen in my life. But I was really surprised. You know, we've been having all these storms. Okay. They told about it on TV and they showed pictures, but it wasn't what it really was. And now you got to see my bedroom before you go home. But I've got it fixed in there so that I can lay and look outside. I can see everything that goes on outside. I know what the neighbors do too. All jokes aside, we had a guy stole a car or something just a couple blocks from here. And they were chasing him all around this neighborhood and they kept telling it on TV. And I thought, what in the world? I look out the window and I saw all this flashing and I thought, well, they said it was going to storm. And I thought, well, it's lightning, you know. But I thought, where's the rain at? Well, this went on for a while and pretty soon I kept seeing these lights and here these lights are shining in our house and I thought, what in the world? Pretty soon the police are around. They were every place. I mean, they said May Avenue was just full of police. Okay, this guy steals this car, and the police are chasing him around here. Well, he gets down here on Miller. Well, the street stops, Miller stops the street here. Okay, you go one more block, but it goes this way. Apparently the guy didn't know that. And the driveway is right in the street. His driveway, you just drift. Okay, his car's parked there. Well, the police are chasing this guy, and he's going this way like 60. Well, he didn't know jog. He runs into this car and knocks it into the house. Well, of course, the police got him then. Okay, there was a woman and 3 men, or yeah, 3 men, there was 4 of them in this car. Well, they couldn't find the one of them. So, boy, they were all over this place. And I thought, and I got up and I looked and I thought, man, there's lights. So I thought, I'll turn on the lights too. So this house has got lights every place. So I turned on the lights and I locked the doors and I went back to bed. So I was watching in there and all these guys were walking back and forth, and pretty soon I could see there was enough light that there was a policeman. So, oh man, I'm not going to the door now. They had the guy in a little shed across the street in the back of the house. That's where they caught him. So we had that. Well, anyway, that's just a story. But a few days ago, they were telling about the weather. Well, it must have been around close to 9 or 10 o'clock. And I thought, what is that red out there? And I got up and I looked. I never saw the sky ever look like it did. It was just blood red. It looked like the whole sky was bleeding. And it almost half scared me. Anyway, I looked around and I went back to bed watching it. And do you know that that didn't last but like 5 minutes and it's gone? Well, the next night, I thought I'm going to look for it again. And the sky was pink. And I thought, what is going on? And then they began to tell it on the weather that we had had all this storm and the clouds were streaky. There was holes in them, you know. And the sun was going down, and it was the sun on these clouds that was making the earth, the sky, red. I have never ever seen the sky look like it did like that. And I've seen a lot of skies because the old people they watch the skies. And I was just amazed by it. Of course, they told about it on TV, but what they showed did not show that color. And it's almost scary. So the next night, I thought, well, is it going to be again? So I called this cousin of mine that's only me and her. And I said, you go watch outside and see what happens tonight. Well, she called me back and she said, the sky's pink. It's all pink. And so I went and watched too. So I thought, golly. Do you know all this happened within 5 minutes? If you weren't outside watching, you did not see it. Because I tried to call my son to tell him to look right quick. It was gone before he got out there. So I've been kind of amazed by that. Okay. Then yesterday morning, when I woke up, it was 6 o'clock and it was just barely getting light. And, you know, the moon was setting. I go wake him up and I said, you want to see something? I said, you get up and come with me.
It was a full moon.
It looked like a basketball.
And it was blood red.
And it was just as clear
Just
and
as
pretty.
red as it could be.
And it looked like a pumpkin up there in the sky. It was orange. It was just as
You
orange
didn't see
as it could
anything
be.
about it on
And
TV.
I kept watching it, you know, and it was gone like that. About 5 minutes. You have to be out there to see it or you miss it. And then when we had that storm here the other morning, I just barely got up and Len says, we better get our cushions in because we just bought those. It says it's going to storm. Well, we barely got them in the house. And it hit. And you talk about hit. The rain and the wind hit at the same time. And so we kind of was up watching, you know, and I looked up, I was standing in the front door. And about the time the first rain just fell like that. And I thought, what? And then the wind hit. And there was like another wave of rain. It took that rain and just waved it like this, and it picked up all this water on our driveway out there. And there was 2 cars sitting in their driveway because they hadn't left yet. It picked all of this water up and swirled it around like that, and it went clear across the street over those cars. And I had never seen anything like that before. I said, it makes you wonder what the world's coming to when you see things like that. But you had to be there just at the right time or you didn't see it.
And you have to take time to see it. Yeah.
Because if I hadn't have been able to lay there in bed and look out, I never would have seen that. Because by the time I could call my son, it was gone. It was that quick.
So if you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, what time do you wind down and go to bed?
Well, we go to bed kind of early because we have our own schedule. We don't do what y'all do. Anyway, we did that for so many years. Now we do what we want to. But we eat kind of early. And instead of sitting around watching TV, we go to bed and watch TV. Because it helps my legs if I have them up. Because this is a full knee replacement. And I just do better if I get on the bed with it. So that's why we go to bed real early. Sometimes 5 o'clock.
Sometimes 5 o'clock?
Mm-hmm. Because see, we eat, I worked at the school. And I ate dinner at 10:30 every day for 20 years.
You get used to it, don't you?
And we just got used to that, and so that's what we go by.
Yeah.
But it doesn't bother anybody but us.
No.
But, when we moved to Norman, we had 2 acres out there. It was in a private area, and it was just us people, and we had all this land, and I told Len, I said, let's make a garden. So we didn't have any level land. It was a tri-level house. We were this way all over. And in the backyard, we had this lake and an island on it. So we had any level you wanted. Well, we had to go to the front yard to get one straight enough to make a garden. So I told him, I said, you get the rototiller out. And we spent all winter a rototilling that garden about once a month, or something like that, a week. We do it real often, and then we do it again. Well, we had a 50 by 100 garden, and we had everything you could think of, except we didn't have too many crawling vines because that took up a lot of space. And anyway, being on the farm, I learned a lot. And the girls I worked with, they were all farmers too, so they were telling me what to do, And I planted big things and little things, big things and little things. See, there was always room for little things underneath. Okay, we had about everything you could think of. I had about 50 tomato plants, prettiest things you ever saw. We made round cages. We got this reinforcing wire, and we made these cages, and we planted all of these tomato plants, and I put a cage around them. We had our own well, so that didn't bother the water, see? And I put a sprinkler up on top of these cages, and it made the whole garden, see? And the first time I picked green beans, I had 2 50-foot rows. I got 75 jars of green beans. And a girl I work with, she told me, she says, you buy contender beans, and there's a black powder that you can buy from the nurseries. And you put these seeds, just put a drop of water on the beans so they're wet, and put them in this black, looks like soot. And you plant them. That's how I got 75 jars the first planting. Okay, I planted onions in with that. And I fixed the rows so that it fit our rototiller, because we could take off the 2 outside ones. And I'd go down, we rototilled it then. That's how we cultivated it. Okay. I canned all this stuff. Then we had the tomatoes. And have you ever heard of pink tomatoes? It's an old thing. But they're red, but they have this pinkish cast to them. And they're really good. They're better than the red ones. Well, anyway, we made all of these tomatoes. And we had everything. And I would gather them, and we had a three house, you know. So I had this big staircase. And I'd take all this stuff and put it under there and let it set for a couple of days in the cool air. And I canned it. And I want you to know that when we moved here to this house, I knew we was going to lose that, you know, so, I mean, you know, move. And anyway, when we moved here to this house, I had canned goods stacked clear to the ceiling on one room. And I brought 50 dozen jars of canned things when I left there. And we had a garden.
I need to get up.
Oh, okay.
So let's learn a little bit more about your magic.
My magic.
Uh-huh.
Let me go get my
book.
book, and I'll tell you all about it.
Okay. Or I can get it. Where is it? You have to get it. All right.
And this is me in the buggy, and that's her.
Ronald McDonald Charities.
Pardon?
So you've performed lots of places.
Oh, yes.
2007 for McDonald's.
When did she pass away?
Oh, this is one of 3 books. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I want to show you. I've been a magician from October 10th, 1939.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
So your sister was pretty long.
Well, let's. Oklahoma City, October the 10th, 1937.
Right.
International Brotherhood of Magicians. I didn't know there was such a thing.
Oh, yes. Here's one. Robert S. Kerr, Governor, Chamber of Commerce,
That was on their 50th anniversary.
American Welding Society.
And the photographer came up, and he was standing there.
So you did this while you were working?
Okay, that's the red
Yeah, no, this was full time.
Oh, this was full time. Okay.
He gave me
All of these are for performance.
Integris.
There's some that are very interesting.
Was Lillian your assistant?
Yes,
Was she?
it's a little closer. That's it. And some of these are just thank you notes, but they were expression of my time. I've been doing a lot of church work, schools, civic clubs.
Warner Brothers, 1950.
From Hollywood.
Was it enough to make a living, or was it just for fun? I mean, was this
No, I was performing for
for
American Association of Magicians. That was the Texas.
Texas? What was your name,
Len, Master Magician.
Mr.
I did get a degree in it.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know you could do that either. Okay.
I'll just go through some of these here. VIP.
A competition.
Iowa. I forget where that's at.
So it was just Len the musician.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I went to school in Ames.
Well, they lived in town.
What got you interested in it?
Yes, I saved every letter I got, I saved. Now I'm glad I did, because I could go through these and
And remember things.
Sounds so familiar.
So,
hopefully pass this on to one of my sons.
well,
That's a lot.
what got you interested to begin with?
That's a lot.
Pardon?
What got you interested in to begin with?
Seeing a master magician, Black Stone,
Genealogy is,
you probably
it takes a
heard
lot
of
to
him.
do.
Yeah, well,
I
he
saw
lives in
him
Fort Worth
perform,
now. They're trying
and I wanted to be a magician.
I don't get to see him all the time.
So 1937, you would have been how old?
Here's the buildings downtown.
Let's see,
221 people there.
where's about the,
So it was mostly in Oklahoma, or would you travel
I traveled all over the United States.
performing magic?
He lived when he first came.
I performed in England a couple times while I was in service. The Department of Interior,
Setting out on dream.
City of Midwest
Not
City.
sure where it's going to take them.
Wow,
Okay,
lots of good memories.
Yes.
and the oldest boy was a horse photographer.
Anyway, it goes clearly. Can you imagine?
It kept you busy.
Has his name.
Yes.
Yes. Do birthday parties?
These are all.
Yes, civic clubs, church groups.
Arabia is expensive.
Did a lot of,
The book's falling apart.
I did a lot of
Back when you used to take photos. No, honestly.
raising
Copyright.
funds to help organizations help.
That's neat.
Well, what got you interested in painting then, when you switched from doing this to painting?
Yes. And now I have to go. Yeah,
Do you live?
Vanna White and Pat Sajak.
I know them. I don't know who they are anyway.
there's the Department of Air Force.
Your
I
husband.
have something to ask you. Didn't finish. Maybe you want to ask you the last one.
These are all thank you letters. Department of Interior.
Been doing it since 1937.
Magic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see.
What's he?
Anyway,
We have one last question for both of you. I want to know, when history's written, what do you want it to say about you as a married couple? How do you want to be remembered?
That we met each other in
that you were
love.
boredom? No, not really. I'm joking. No, it's really an honor to you to do this. I mean, for the state of Oklahoma, you're doing a lot for your type work. It's what I'm saying is being appreciated.
It's not as magical as yours.
Yeah, it's too bad he can't talk better because he could really tell stories.
Anyway, this is one of 3 books.
Well, how do you, when history's written, how do you want to be remembered as a married couple?
And he loved me. The fact that we met, and, really, from the day we met, we've just been something else together.
Oh, I'm not doing very good, Alex.
But I didn't get to stay with him very long until he had to leave. That was the hard part of it. I went. He ended up in Indiana, and there was 2 other girls that knew boys that was with him. There was 3 of them, and we all went together, and we went back to when he left. And I can remember the last time I seen when we were, I guess we were going to wherever the base was, probably. And anyway, I remember we were kind of on this car bus ahead for us, you know.
Robert S. Kerr,
Yeah.
back in 1942,
And when he,
46.
When he turned around to wave goodbye, that was the last time I saw him.
In 1946.
And you'd only known him for a little while,
Just a few days, really.
but you knew he was the one.
Because I even followed him, see. I left here and I went with these other girls to where he left from. It was in Indiana.
So when he came back, what was that day like?
Well, he was in the hospital then.
Mm-hmm.
And I took off and I went up there. He was in Michigan. And I went to see him.
Is that yours?
It's mine.
It's been so long ago. But anyway, I went to the hospital where he was, but he wasn't like in bed then, but he was in the hospital. And they were standing up and doing something, and I remember picking him out of line. And I went right up to him.
And said, "He's mine."
I knew he was. But you know, to think that now he was gone not quite a year, that every night I wrote him a letter. And I was lucky enough that I've only had 2 jobs. And do you know that both of those jobs I was recommended to, and they gave me a call and said, come to work? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. And anyway, all the while he was gone, though, but I thought about him all the time. Of course, I didn't realize how bad he was. It's probably a good thing I didn't.
Yeah.
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 But we've had a busy life, haven't we, honey?
Now that they're focused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, how did the two of you, how do you want to be remembered as a married couple after history's written?
I think we should be known for our love, because how many people have been together this long and we've never been separated to speak of. The only time we was ever apart is, like a hospital or trip or something like that. We're always
We did a lot of socializing. I belonged to the Irish Club, as I say, and Ronald McDonald House, and Mercy Hospital, OOHRP Hospital. I raised funds for these.
It seems like we always have something going.
About 50% of my work was offered to charity. So I kind of enjoyed that.
Good deeds.
Good, yeah.
Good
Really,
deeds.
I had a
Absolutely.
nice family. I have a family to be proud of.
Well, it sounds like they have someone to be proud of too. You're great.
We do it together.
Yeah.
So no secrets.
Well, how can you have secrets when you know everything they're doing?
You can finish his thoughts for him.
Well, sure.
Okay, he can do the same.
Oh, listen, I have all these secret pockets, that the magicians have. Where do you think they came from? I know what he does.
You know what he does. Well, we sure appreciate you spending the morning with us. It's been great. Thank you for
Well,
sharing.
you come back or call anytime you want to.